for me, in this moment, possibility is the most precious thing that we can make together.
How do you make possibility?
You combine, you join things, you bring things together. There's the Barnaby of it and the Nora of it. And when we get together and we don't know where we're going, but you have a lifetime of experience and I have a lifetime of experience, and whoever I can be with you is really different than who I can be with anybody else. So, in each combination of people and place and organisms, you don't have to worry about it. It's making itself. You just have to notice it.
Some strange things have happened during the making of these podcast interviews, but perhaps nothing stranger than somebody discovering a dead raccoon in their duct system. That is what happened during my fascinating and hilarious conversation with Nora Bateson, artist, filmmaker, writer, academic, founder of the Bateson Institute, and daughter of the late, great Gregory Bateson. The intrusion of real life into the conversation ended up being strangely prophetic.
Welcome to the Clown Spirit Podcast. And here's your clowntastic host, Mr. Barnaby.
This is, for me, Nora, like a really beautiful opportunity because we've never met before. But I feel like your work is familiar to me, mainly through the influence of your father, Gregory Bateson, who I studied because I did performance studies in my PhD. And so Gregory Bateson was one of the first things that we read. And so to find out about your work and to start learning about it has reminded me of some of the beauty and importance of that work, particularly around play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can see how that would be, part of what was happening for you with your clown stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'd love to bring the conversation around to that. But maybe what we could do just to begin is for listeners who are probably less likely to be familiar with Gregory Bateson or you or your work, you really have an extraordinary breadth of interest and it's extremely relevant to today. Your ideas around the contextual nature of the world, of the universe, ideas about interdependency, relationality, vitality, how to respond to the complexity of the world. Could you give the listener what is at the core of your concern right now of your work?
All right. I love that. It's interesting because even 3-4 years ago, I would have had to answer that question very differently. But now I think it's a sort of a funny irony, but with the coming of AI, there is an increase in awareness and in the experience, certainly, of people really feeling the consequences of even the social media and addiction to technologies and this constant interaction through digital interfaces, like we're doing right now. And in some ways, these digital interfaces offer connection across geographies, across crises of one sort or another, from pandemics to wars, etc. And that's a really beautiful thing. But on the other hand, there are a lot of analog sensorial processes in our cognition that reach actually beyond even the human body, but into the microbiome and into the environment and into the seasons, the rhythms of life, etc. I'm not anti-technology because that would be silly to be anti-technology. But what I am really concerned about in this moment is how to bring alongside this rapid raging train that's coming to us of AI, how to bring alongside that a full-bodied intellectual, emotional, physical, and communicational appreciation for being alive and all of the mysteries in that we do not know what we're breaking. So I think that's, for me, that's the crux of really what I'm working with. And within that, there's the very difficult issue of The fact that we are, all of us, in some deep intergenerational traumas and configurations of communication and relationship that are fraught with pain, with damage, from colonialism, from industrialism, from the illusion of the individual isolated from other individuals, from the history of eugenics, from the machine metaphor, from the Cartesian split. Like, how far do you want to go back? We could go all the way back to agriculture, the beginning. So there is a deep damage to the practiced perception of the combining of multiple contexts and interdependencies. Now, if that sounds abstract, basically what I'm trying to say is that in any kind of an ecology, you have lots of organisms that are all responding to each other, and they're all in some kind of what the biosemiotics would call communication. So are we. And if we think that we can operate in some sort of reductionism where we're outside of that world of multiple forms of simultaneous communication within our own bodies and among the other organisms, then that is an illusion that will produce and has produced a great deal of damage. I don't know, I guess for a couple hundred years we've been getting away with it. And when I say we, I'm particularly speaking to those people who have benefited from the exploitation of other people and the biosphere, because a lot of people have not benefited. Most people have not. And certainly most organisms and ecosystems have not. And what is benefit? What do we mean by benefit? Somehow there's been some wealth, some comfort, some positionality that allowed for exploitation, but all of that actually produced a distance from the rhythms of life, from death, from cold, from illness, from pain, from all sorts of things that are not necessarily, we have to be thankful for the technologies of medicine and homes and heating and cooling and cars, because it has given us our life. But in that moment, we also became more and more distanced from when the sun rises, when the tides change, where the stars are. You can't even see the stars in most places anymore. We're not able to, we've lost a couple hundred years of deep research and connection to a lot of other processes and resonances, rhythms, relationships, communication with life.
Yeah. And as you said, there's a protection, right? We've put up walls around ourselves, literal and metaphorical walls around ourselves that have done a great job of severing our relationality, and that was at the heart of that is at the heart of who we are literally, right? Like our brains and our bodies evolved for that relational world. And now we surrounded ourselves by these boundaries that sever that. And as you say, we're in PTSD a little bit from coloniality and colonialism and other changes that could go back further. And as even now, as we're just reeling from the shock of all of that, it's like we hit ourselves over the head again with like now the march of technology, with social media, the impact of that, with AI now, and the completely unknown impact of that, the acceleration of change seems to be just ramping up. You said something a few years ago, which I found online in a video around if we can, you were talking about education actually and patterns of thinking and this kind of cookie cutter stamp of thinking and education. And you said if we continue to generate this kind of epistemological approach, this kind of thinking, the human species, along with thousands of others, will die, cannot continue. And that was maybe 10 years ago you said that. Where are we now in that?
Just, I think adding the artificial intelligence to this is just going to make it faster. This is why I'm doing everything I possibly can to nourish those sorts of connections. And most of them are actually not verbalized. They're actually below or beyond, however you want to look at that, the verbal place. And it's frustrating because there are lots. 10 years ago, people weren't really, they were just beginning to get interested in systems thinking. And McKinsey hadn't quite picked up the word complexity yet, but it was about to happen. And so the hope was that if this would become mainstream, that we would start to see some different approaches coming in. But what happened was the idea of systems thinking and complexity work entered an already mechanistic context and got digested into the mechanism. So we see systemic and complexity work that is now here, but it's stuck in a spreadsheet. And it's actually inside the same concepts of measurement, of linear goals, of like ways of doing strategy that are actually not at all within the complexity. So it's very frustrating for me and I'm sure for a lot of other people, but I think it's really not better than it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe worse, or maybe it's changed. But let's try and make this really concrete for people listening, because
Okay.
you and I could easily get into a kind of an academic speak conversation. I was wondering, for example, if you think about people can resonate with the idea of the impacts on their mental health and their physical health, the impacts of spending a lot of time online, getting sucked into that kind of world of social media, the impact of AI. I think so. We could talk about the sort of the day-to-day effects of that. And then also, what are the things that we can do to rejuvenate, or it's not quite the right word, but to reconnect, maybe
Mm.
bring communication back, to start to sense again into these non-verbal ways of connecting. Maybe this brings us back into that realm of play, as I'm
Yeah.
thinking about.
Yeah. I think play is really a wonderful place to start. And by play, I think it's important to remind people that we don't mean happy face emojis and toys. Play is the possibility of loosening the very potentially rigid habits of perception, right? Play loosens that in one way or another, whether it's by perceiving something you've never perceived before and having a looseness around your perception that allows that. Or sometimes play just gives us the permission to not be right or wrong, but to experiment, to try again. Like when a root comes to a rock under the ground, it doesn't just go, oh, screw it. It goes, maybe I'll try this and maybe I'll try this. You know, that famous expression from the movie with the dinosaurs. It's called,
Jurassic Park.
thank you. And he says, life finds a way. And when life is finding a way, life is playing. That's
Right.
what's happening. And so play is at this absolute core of evolution and even survival because we're in situations that they're unprecedented. We don't know how to respond to these situations. And the experience we have from the past of responding to other crises, other situations, is not actually that useful. So we can draw from it, but more than likely, it's going to require some improvisation. And so I think that thing of imagining that all 8 billion of us are in some sort of improvisational moment that has to do with recognizing that mistakes have been made in the past and pain and destruction has been everywhere. It's ubiquitous. But what are we moving toward? And how does that we, whoever we is in that, because I'm not sure it's just even human organisms,
Yeah.
What is the play? What is that experimentation, that practice, that maneuvering, that improvisation? How are we going to do that? What are the new rhythms, the new resonances?
And isn't this going to require a kind of fulcrum moment where enough people are willing to enter into that spirit of play? Because if you think about religious extremists, or I don't know, many categories of people living on the planet, there's no play, there's no possibility for play because they're living inside this kind of very rigid script where certain things are, and that's how they are.
Mhm.
And all of us to some extent are limited and by scripts as well. But so how can we loosen up that? How can we bring play into the everyday in a way that's actually going to make change happen, as opposed to just a few of us on the fringes trying to like do it?
I think it's important to look at that. I see this all the time, right? Where people are like, yeah, but that's not how life is. You said the word are, right? It's all about the verb to be. What do you mean how life is? What does that mean? If you had been alive 15,000 years ago and you lived in a jungle somewhere, what would it mean? What would your hands do in a day? What would they hold? What would they heal? What would they make? What would you be doing? What would matter to you? What would matter? And if you were born 16 years ago in New York City, what would your hands do in a day? What would matter? And if you were born 25 years ago in, I don't know, on an island in the South Pacific, what would your hands do? And so I think if we start to recognize that human beings have learned to be in their world in so many different ways, there is no is. There is no this is how life is in the sense of the global economy is how it is. And you got to go to school because that's how it is. And you got to get a job because it's how it is. We have bought into this complicitly for sure. And right now, I can't feed my kids if I don't buy in, quite literally, buy in. And in that sense, we are really hijacked in a very restrictive sense of isness. And so the effort to improvise through this is incredibly challenging because the perception that life can only be like it is right now is very seductive. But on the other hand, it's changing whether we believe it can change or not. And I think the pandemic was a good example of that, when suddenly it did stop. The thing that could never stop did stop. And it's going to be very difficult to convince the generation of kids who went through school in those years to actually go back to school because it really matters. It's
Yeah, yeah,
not that easy to talk them back into it. I've got a bunch of kids that I've had to do that with. And so, what does that mean? I think there is this whole sort of business of being very careful of the verb to be here, which is that is our verb of what actually is life and what does it mean to be a human being and how do we take care of ourselves and each other and the world that we live in. And the play here is so important. But okay, I have a huge but here because I get this one thing that just drives me bananas, which is that I really don't want to be caught in some notion that if we get together and we create a vision of the future, that we can create it together.
yeah.
That, my friend, is engineering. That's not play. And
Yeah, explain to me the difference.
what?
Explain to me let's pull apart that difference between creating a goal and trying to work towards it versus being spontaneous, being authentic, being in the moment. That's the way I'm reading what you just
Yeah,
said.
okay. Authentic, spontaneous, in the moment, improvising. I'm going to add to that that you're able to perceive the complexity Okay, so one of the things that happens when you set a goal or make a wish or create a vision or articulate the strategic linear process is it's linear. And in that moment, all the complexity that could pop up and will pop up and is popping up gets hijacked and obscured. And so it's basically a possibility eater. It's a vaporizer of the ability to perceive possibility. And for me, in this moment, possibility is the most precious thing that we can make together.
How do you make possibility?
For one thing, you don't make linear goals. But the other is that you combine, you join things, you bring things together. There's the Barnaby of it and the Nora of it. And when we get together and we don't know where we're going, but you have a lifetime of experience and I have a lifetime of experience. And whoever I can be with you is really different than who I can be with anybody else. So, in each combination of people and place and organisms, you don't have to worry about it. It's making itself. You just have to notice it.
It's funny because you're all the things you're saying that we need to do are exactly what my Clown Spirit Village community is like designed to do. And even as I say that, I'm realizing the trap. Like I designed it to do this so that
Yeah.
I'm already engineering this cross-fertilization, for example, of bringing people together with different perspectives and different ideas and allowing them to using the tools of play. You said just now that play is maybe what we need to survive. It's a survival tool, I think
I
it.
would say of all organisms, not just people. Yeah, it's not just a people thing.
You're right. And play, and if that's true, clowns are in a great place.
As long as they don't get too dogmatic,
Yeah.
because that I've seen that happen where there's only particular ways to play. And then
Yeah,
that's,
rules for play.
yeah, you said tools, and that's not a word that I would use.
Rules and tools. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? What is play? And there's this beautiful thing that when my dad was talking about play, where he talked about the puppies that play. And we have some dogs, and it's so wonderful to see them play. And the way that they do it, I just don't know if we know how. I don't know. Do we forget how to play? Maybe we forgot because it's the infinite game. It's not a game that you play to win or lose. It's the game that makes life. It's the
Yeah.
game that you just keep playing and maneuvering and finding a way, right? We're finding a way. And so in the with the puppies, he talked about how the puppies will play bite each other. And that there's a really interesting thing is that the puppies know that the play bite is a bite that says this is not a bite, this is a play bite. We're not fighting, we're playing. We're practicing. I mean, this word practicing keeps coming up. So play is very much practice. Let's try it out. Let's do it as if. Let's do it. And Korzybski said, the map is not the territory. Okay. And that is so important because it makes room for both the map and the territory to be in motion. And if we do something as if, it's not actually like that, but it's as if. So these are ways that we're entering something in a moment where the double binds and the pains and the traumas and the dramas are at full tilt. I feel like the whirling blades of life they're just slicing us up right now. Everybody I know is in some kind of crisis or a few different kinds of crisis, whether it's mental health or financial or some sort of spiritual crisis or physical illness or family crisis or taking care of somebody that they don't have time or everybody's or war or ecological crisis or
And it's all human drama. That's the interesting thing, right? Nothing's changed in the universe. Like since 100,000 years ago, nothing has really changed in the universe.
not even your hands. Your hands look a whole lot like they looked 15,000 years ago. They don't look so different, but they do very different things in a day.
And the atoms in those hands have existed for billions of years and haven't changed.
They've changed a little. Nothing stays the same. So, that movement and that, because we're all responding, all the organisms are responding to all the organisms.
Mm.
So we're
I
we're
love this. It feels like you're dancing right now. We're a little shimmy, the
a
universe.
little shimmy, the little universe shimmy, the meadow. The meadow is meadowing. The ocean is oceaning.
Oh, and I heard you say meta there as well. The meta.
The
The Actually,
the
let's not say that word in this space. I don't
yeah.
like the word anymore. It used
Well,
to say meta in academia, and now it's not
it's been see, these are the things that
been
got,
stolen from us.
yeah, they got absorbed into the machine.
So what you just said about the as if and this bite that's not a bite is so beautiful because that what your father came up with there, or what he articulated there, and that idea, which is very familiar to me, really was the founding thought of performance studies. And if you look at the work of Victor Turner and Schechner and all these people who've come after in performance studies and have picked up on that idea, it's been applied to art, to
Mhm.
performance and art. Acting, performance is where is when I'm acting, I'm not me, but I'm also not me.
Exactly.
I'm not I and I'm not I. It's like this weird reflexivity where I'm stepping outside of myself to enact something playful that is more me also than I am. It's like a hyper real version, hyper truthful version. So I feel like with clowning, when we step into that clown space and we create a clown character or a scenario, it's ridiculous, it's ludicrous, which means
Mhm.
playful,
Yeah.
ridiculous, and it makes people laugh. And yet the way that it captures the truth goes deeper and more powerful than the reality, the surface level reality that we live at every day.
So here we are, and we're talking in prose, right? And when you're talking in prose, you're basically only saying one thing at a time. But when you're playing, okay, when that puppy has a play bite, it says two things at once. There's more than one message happening simultaneously. And
Right.
when there's more than one message taking place simultaneously, there's movement, there's gapping, there's shifting, there's like a reverberation in the Umwelt, in the epistemology, in the sense making, in the perception. And that is what makes us laugh. That is what makes us be able to perceive in a new way. This is why humor and play are so important for revolution,
Say
because
more.
you
Say more.
can't, for evolution, for revolution, for revelation and elevation. But in those moments where there's more than one thing being communicated simultaneously, you're not doing direct communication. And direct communication has its place, but you can get very stuck if you think you're only perceiving one thing at a time. I would argue that you're never really perceiving one thing at a time. There's only the illusion that you are. And so when you get those humorous moments where you have to play with multiple frames simultaneously, it like it bumps out the possibility of what you could perceive. It changes the brackets of who you can be, how you can be, and the world that you can perceive that you live in, which is, oh my God, such an amazing gift. We need it every day.
Gosh, that's beautiful manifesto. You mentioned dinosaurs just now.
Hold
Go
on.
on.
Hello, hold on. I'm coming. Hi. Did you find a dead thing?
I need 2 minutes of your time.
Okay, let me just tell my podcast guy. Barnaby,
Yeah.
I'll be right back, okay?
Yeah, no rush. It's
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
So here we are. Nora has gone to take care of some
dead animals that crept into her house. And I'm left here reflecting on the power of this conversation we're having, especially around these ideas of play as the means of survival, the thing that we need right now, the opening up of new possibilities, the power of ambiguity, where two things are possible at the same time. And of course, this has just made me think even more about the importance and the power of clowning. And I feel so inspired just to invite you in. It just seems like a no-brainer. We need to be tapping into this energy of the clown. It's what we need more than anything in the world right now. Whether it's Clown Spirit Village or another access point, all the signs, all the arrows point in this direction. So I just invite you to step into this world of clowning. Maybe you're already in it, and then maybe the question is, how can you step even more deeply into it? Take that next leap off the edge of the cliff, commit to it even more. I hope that, by joining Clown Spirit Village, it could be a way for you to do that. But there may be other ways that work better for you right now. Whatever it is that works, I don't mind. My singular goal and desire is that you embrace clowning, that you unleash your clown. I need your clown. We all need it right now. Okay. Rant over. Here comes Nora.
You mentioned Jurassic Park and dinosaurs, and this image came to me of something just up the road from you and I, which is that there are people on the street dressed up as dinosaurs and other animals outside the ice facility, clowning, essentially. They're bringing play into that space of political protest. And it's very tough. They're being met with violent opposition, and they're being shut down, and they're being arrested and shot, and tear gas is being thrown at them. But they're bringing that playfulness into that space. So I wonder about, what do you think about activism and the actual play coming into that space of activism? Is that how it can work, or is it something different?
Yeah, I think that it certainly is going to be better to bring play into activism as much as possible. But where things can get really weird with that is when you get mono message play, right? So when you get sometimes with art that's activism art, it's not actually very interesting art because it has one thing to say, and art never has one thing to say. And so I think the hitch with art as activism is to actually be true to the process of art, which means that people might not understand in context what it is you're trying to say, because what it is you're trying to say is many things. And it's really the opposite of war, which is not got that multiplicity in it. So there's a piece that I work with complexity and double binds and how you move through these things, where the sort of expression that I use is that you meet, not match. To meet the trouble is very different than to match the trouble. I see some of the things that are happening in Portland as meeting the trouble, but not matching it. And when you meet it, so the message of the naked bike riders is really fantastic, because in a way it's talking about we have nothing to hide. How much more harmless can you be than a naked person on a bicycle? So it's such a beautiful approach to responding to the riot police and the National Guard. And so that notion of like, how do you respond to situations that are so pointed and critical and direct in ways that are none of those things? And that's a really interesting dance. And I think they actually did a great job in Portland.
It's interesting though, because the opposition tries to shut it down by saying, interestingly, they're saying the naked bike ride was one of the most threatening, dangerous things they've ever seen. That was a quote by a Republican politician. And I don't know if that's real fear that's being felt, but even just the articulation of that is really interesting. That what you just described as something so vulnerable and innocent can be described or perceived as threatening.
It is, because it does not match. So if it threatens the actual positioning of those National Guards there. It positions them in a way of, what are you doing? So they have to question themselves. So of course, that's a threat to the situation. But it's a different kind of threat. And I don't know. I think we're in an interesting time. I'll say that, around how to respond to, and to respond creatively, to respond with humor, to respond with play in a moment. Because what you're doing when you respond with play is you're expanding the context of what it's possible to perceive. Right? And if we're used to seeing that there's going to be violence and this person has these weapons and this person has these weapons, that's a very different thing than if this person has these weapons and these people are naked on bicycles. It's a totally different context of communication. And in that shifting of the communication, there's a lot of room for confusion, for disorientation, for creativity, for improvisation, for accusation, but there's room. When you have match, there's no room. It's this fight and that fight.
I love what you're saying about duality and complexity. It reminds me of Bakhtein's theory about carnival, the carnivalesque,
Yes,
and
exactly.
dialogism, and the idea that, that a lot of messages in the world and power structures are monologue. I think it's similar to what you just said. There's a kind of pretense of unity and oneness.
And again, with the isness, this is how it is. And actually, I was just recently in Geneva and got accidentally caught in a demonstration at a train station and got tear gassed.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm not speaking from some sort of place of not, knowing how serious it is on the ground. It's serious on the ground. There were Molotov cocktails, and the guy next to me was catching fire, and I didn't even mean to be there. I was just at the train station, so I was really confused about how what's going on.
Wow.
But in that moment, the response was, find your friends, figure out where to go. We can't get out of here because there's riot police everywhere. So we went into a cafe. We got into the cafe, and the cafe was actually full of protesters who were just quietly sitting having tea. And it was the tear gas and the Molotov cocktails had come from the protesters, but not those protesters, and not us, and not the riot police, and not the. So it was like this very, wow, we are in a really weird moment of what happens in these crowd breakdowns and where the volatility is actually sitting. And one of the things that was very clear to me in that moment was how the illusion of the institutional safety was actually so dangerous. Right? I walked into that train station thinking everything's going to be fine. I'm going to a Swiss train station.
Yeah.
You can eat off the floor. And then suddenly there was 150 riot police stomping around. And I was like, something is not good. I don't know what's going on, but something is definitely not okay. And this idea that things that used to have all the meta messaging of safety, like a train station in Switzerland, or a lot of other things, like just starting to recognize that the isness is pixelating, and it is not that safe. You have to actually have your eyes open now. And I'm going to just also say that while that sounds fearful, I would invite it also as play, of recognizing that the stage is changing. The characters are in transformation. Things are moving. And when things are moving, you have to be able to improvise in response. Obviously, you're not going to get your train. Forget it. It's not going to happen. Figure out a new way. Find somebody you've never met before. Get in a taxi with them. Suddenly you have emails and phone numbers for people you've never met before. And it becomes an improvisational response. But it can also shut you down. So I think I remember my dad asking this one question that feels relevant to this conversation, where he said, because he predicted long ago that we would be looking at this period of time when actually lots of people's lives are being damaged and ecosystems damaged, and that the grief is a lot. The confusion, the shock, the trauma, that you could lose morale. All right, what makes morale? How do you keep morale? Because it's not something you do for yourself. I'll give you a hint there. It's something that happens in relationship. How do you keep morale? And that is, and his question was, in times of devastation, how do we actually preserve the possibility that there will be enough people after various cataclysmic destructions who will be able to be creative together? Because it's so painful. And so the question there, I think, is a really interesting provocation of play, right? How to be in various serious situations and take them seriously, and don't bypass that grief. Don't bypass the wound. My God, no, don't do that. But what does it take to be in despair and still be able to play? Not to avoid the despair, because that would be trouble, but to be in despair and still be able to get up in the morning and improvise and play and see the beauty in the world and in other people and in the possibilities that exist.
Yeah, beautiful. There was something that you said about your father in an interview I heard that was really resonant for me around clowning, which was you said that he would share with you his admission or his reflections on being wrong. He would be really open about, oh, I've been wrong about that. I've made a mistake in my perception, or I've changed, I've shifted my beliefs. And there was just something beautifully clownish about that. And I imagined him as this person who was maybe quite mischievous and quite clownish in a way. One of the core tenets, I think, of clowning is that it's about foolishness and failure and being open about those and being truthful about those. And it feels to me like that's a really important element of not only learning, but of moving on, or this, what you just mentioned, this ability to be creative when we're really suffering and in grief is the sort of the ability to be, I don't know, to be able to acknowledge our mistakes and our foolishness and our flaws in an authentic, in relational way.
The foibles. The thing is that when you're able to be not rigidly right, not locked into some sort of waterproof, authoritative positioning where you will lose everything if there's a crack in your armor, is that what it shows is that you can learn. And when one person in a relationship is in that kind of learning, that now if you make it a sort of a hierarchy thing or a righteousness process, if I'm willing to do the work and you're not, that's not actually quite as funny. It's not quite the invitation to play. So and that's a good way to put it here, because that way that he would be willing to be like, oh, I thought about it differently. I thought it was like this. Now I see it's like that. it was an invitation for me to also not have to be. So I think this question is a second order question, right? So what we're talking about is not play, but the invitation to play. What does the invitation to play look like? And when we are in conversation and we're doing things, in what way are we inviting each other to play? Because that's not that easy to get your vocabulary around. It's not necessarily, my dog used to do this thing. I'm sure you've seen it where the dog will sit there and then suddenly they put their feet down and they put their head down and their butt in the air and they're ready to play. And that's the message that says, let's play. But with human beings, it's a whole different setup. Like when you start to see the beginning of like a Monty Python skit or something. Where is the communication that says, let's play? Because it's there right the way through. But it isn't what is said, right? You never say, oh, come on, let's play. Because if you did, that's
No, and it's something is in the body, right? There's like the raise of the eyebrow or the wink or the little or the nod. There's smiles. There's all kinds of visual nonverbal cues. And it's in tone, voice, of course, which is why we get into such knots when we often communicate by email or text when we can't hear the voice or see the visual cues. So we can't understand irony, for example. We can't understand how what I'm saying is not what I'm saying because there's something else being communicated. To speak back to what you mentioned earlier about communicating multiple things. And so that those are two kind of technical things. But then I think there's something else, which is more about spirit and that we can't, that's ineffable, that's really hard to grasp or describe. There's just a feeling when you're with a certain person. And I have it with you, actually. There's a feeling like we have permission to be playful and to talk. And with some people, you don't get that. And I don't know, I've never been able to figure out what that is, how you can create more of it.
it's a really interesting question, isn't it? What is that? Because you can't just when people, that's why I was with the tools word, because there's no tool that's going to give you that. No
Maybe,
amount of deep breathing and funny games are going to actually make it possible.
let me be a devil's advocate for a moment with that.
Okay, go ahead. I'm game.
One of the most fundamental exercises that we do in clowning is like just coming out sometimes with a red nose and a hat, but it doesn't even have to be. And you come out from a screen or a door and you just face the people.
Yeah.
And it can be one person or a group of people, but it's just to breathe and to connect with the eyes and to see if you can communicate at that level. Let something emerge in that space between that's nonverbal. And what happens is you go on this ride and it becomes something, and it's hard to predict what's going to happen. But I do think that's a muscle. I think through repetition and practice and putting ourselves in that vulnerable place, we can get more comfortable with it and better at it. And therefore,
Some people can.
yeah,
I agree. When you say practice, I'm with you 100%.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I also know a lot of people who've been practicing meditation for decades that are still assholes. There's no guarantee
Yeah,
that practice is going to get you through it, especially if you do it too. So if you do the practice and you allow something to happen, something is more likely to happen than if you do the practice too.
Mm.
If you do the practice because there's something in the practice that is moving you and you're enjoying the movement, the possibility that something will happen beyond that, I think, is increased. But if you do the practice to get the increased thing, it becomes a bit.
Is there some balance of the two things? Because we need goals. Like humans, we need to put something out there in front of us in order to have some forward momentum. Otherwise, you would never write a book or we would never produce the classes or things that we need. But
I don't know about that. I think like I remember right now I've got my stepson visiting me and we're doing his applications for art school. And I went through his portfolio of his work and I realized, oh man, this kid is an artist. And it's not like he wants to be an artist. He's moved to make God help him. He can't stop being an artist. I married in my life two musicians. Got married twice, married two musicians. But it's the same thing, right? It's not like I'm going to be a musician because I'm going to be so comfortable in that life. The music is the experience. I don't get up in the morning and feed my kids because I'm going to get something out of it. I get up in the morning and I feed my kids because I want them to be fed. I want them to know that they're loved. That's part of the intergenerational possibility. The meadow behind me is not meadowing to do something. It's just making life. So I think we have to be careful of naturalizing linear goals. And at the same time, don't get me wrong, I know that we make goals and yeah, okay. But can you change them along the way? Can you, okay, I wanted to do this, but I'm going to go this other way because I see possibilities that I didn't see before? Or are you going to be stuck to that rigid goal? And especially when it comes to things like dealing with very intense crisis. The temptation is to create a goal to get out of the crisis because the crisis is screaming at you. But more often than not, the thing that's going to loosen the crisis is somewhere else. It's another context that's going to open that. And if you get caught in the monoculture of the crisis and do a match and not a meet from another context, from in other ways of responding, it doesn't actually move. It just gets worse. So I think our relationship to goals and linear process right now is probably one of the biggest challenges. Like in the 60s and 70s, people dropped acid and had promiscuous sex and joined new religions and did all sorts of things to break away from the crusty, crystallized cultures that they had been oppressed by. And those were the keys to the doors that opened new ways of perceiving.
hmm.
The keys to the doors now are not really LSD and promiscuous sex anymore, but this thing, how to begin to live your life in ways that are really full of morale and activation and relationship and improvisation, but are not necessarily driven by goals. Like, what would that take? What
I want to add the words delight and surprise into your list.
nice. Yeah. And discovery.
Yeah.
So that thing is really important because it moves us into more ecological thinking, more ecological perception.
Mm.
Nature never does one thing at a time. Ever. Nature never does one thing at a time. And part of the distancing from the natural world is in this perception, habit, addiction to the idea that you can make an accomplishment or have agency in one thing at a time. And it's never one thing at a time. Even if you think you're doing one thing, you're not doing one thing. It's going to have second and third and nth order repercussions. So, what would it look like to begin to respond to each other and the world around us with something more like a meadow? And I think you're right when you say it's play.
Well, it's very warming to hear you say that because I've been saying that for a long time. And just because you said it doesn't mean it's right, but it's nice to hear it. And you're a human who I feel is gifted in and able to channel a lot of very easy to understand wisdom.
Mm,
I'm really grateful for that. You've said so many things in the last hour that have just really dropped in a really clear way for me.
that's great. I need another break.
Go for
Just
it.
a second.
Yeah.
Now I gotta go pay the money.
Okay, the money, yeah.
Pay the money. Just insane. It's a dead raccoon in
Wow.
like under inside the insulation under the house.
Wow. Crawled in
And
there.
I'm having this conversation while we're doing this.
I'm going to tell you actually, Nora, this is not uncommon. Weird things happen.
They sure do.
I was talking with Bio Komalafe,
Yeah.
and in the middle of our conversation, he had to go off and deal with some crisis that his daughter was having. He came back, and then we wove it in, and it was a beautiful thing. It was like, oh, this is life.
Yeah. It's life.
So your raccoon under the house is part of the interconnectedness. So exactly what we're talking
Ugh,
about. I feel like we were winding up anyway.
yes,
At
I
that
think
moment.
so.
Can I just finish by asking you, you have this institute, the Bateson Institute, and what are you doing at the moment, and how can we clowns come and
Oh, I would love that. Okay, what am I doing at the moment? I'm just in an interesting moment of realizing that I really want to be more involved with things that go deeper. Things like we're doing right now are fun, but we only have an hour to really go into things that need more time. We need more time together, human to human. So I'm focusing this for 26. I'm going to be doing a lot of warm data trainings, and that's an 8-day program that is practice and theory and story and it's my favorite thing to do. And so these warm data trainings, ostensibly you become trained to be a warm data host, which is fine, and I would love to see what clowns would do with that. And but a lot of people just come and do the training over and over again because it's so delicious. And that the theory is and the stories are great and just being human to human in analog communication is so needed. So I'm doing a lot of that. I'm also starting a film. So I'm about to make a new movie and I'm very excited about that. And I have a new book coming. So I have 26 is a year I feel I'm really wanting to just nourish in every possible way that creative space and the communicational relational space
Mm.
and be less involved with conferences and things like that, where I feel like it's just not enough to really meet the complexity of the moment with the depth and the real need of life.
You mentioned that earlier that everyone is in crisis right now, but I have to say that it feels like clowning is never been healthier.
Well, that's
It
good.
is a moment of thriving and growing in the community of clowning. And there's lots of people out there coming to it and being like, oh, this is it. This is what I want to do because of the way the world is right now.
I can actually really see that. Maybe I should come clowning with you.
I think you should. I think we should have a play date or something like that.
I think that would be great. We're not very far from each other geographically. We should.
No, and isn't that a weird coincidence? We could have a play date and we could invite some other people to join us on that and open a play space where we bring different stories and methods and play approaches to play.
Yes, I would like to do that as long as it's not. I've been around a lot of workshopping. I grew up at Esalen and I'm super allergic to it.
Oh yeah. I get it.
If it's not pretty real and spontaneous, if it's like a program, I get itchy.
No, I'm thinking we just get in a space and see what happens.
Okay, that's good. I can do that. But the minute you're like, now take a deep breath and close your eyes, I'm out. That's me out. Gone. You are going to relax. No, I'm not. I was always that kid? Close your eyes.
Yeah. You're the clown.
I couldn't quite get down with it. There's the sanctimoniousness of a lot of things. Is it like reverence is an interesting subject, right? How do we hold the sacred and the reverence for the sacred without getting icky?
Yeah. That's why clowns exist in sacred ceremony.
That's why I was thinking about bio when you were talking about carnival. And this wonderful thing that I attended with bio in Great Barrington. And there were all these very serious people talking about all this very serious stuff. And then there were people doing backflips and wearing masks and swarming and slithering around on stage with us so that nobody could get too serious.
Yeah.
To keep it loose, to keep the edges moving. And I just love bio for that. I just think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This was so fun.
Nora, thank you. Let's have another chat sometime, and hopefully we can meet in person soon.
I would really enjoy that, and you're not very far, so let me know if you're ever coming over to Portland side, and I'll let you know if I'm headed down Hood River Way.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, and I hope you get the raccoon situation control.
Ugh.
Embrace
All
the chaos.
Embrace the chaos. Thank you. Take care.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, Nora.
Well, that was a lot of fun to listen to again. It's been a few weeks since I actually did that interview, and so interesting, so many challenging ways to think about play, how crucial it is at this juncture in our history, and also the potential pitfalls of being dogmatic, of singular ideas of play, and also just a simple invitation to come together, to connect our different worlds. And that is what we're doing already. Maybe if you're listening to this for the first time, this Clown Spirit podcast, and maybe if you've come to this podcast because you're a fan of Nora Bateson and you think that clowning might be for you or something you just want to check out, please do have a look at our website, www.clown-spirit.com. There's a lot of resources there, free resources, ways for you to get into or dip a toe in, or if you want, jump fully into the world of clowning. And for those who are looking for a little more commitment, we have Clown Spirit Village as well, which is a membership program with so many opportunities to connect with other people interested in clowning, to learn more deeply about the history and culture and technique of clowning, and of course, just to explore and express your own inner clown, which I think is so healthy right now and necessary in the world. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, for spreading the word about the Clown Spirit podcast and about clowning in general. Thanks for writing a review, for giving us a like, for sharing it on your profile with your friends, and just thanks. Have a great day, and I'll see you at the next Clown Spirit podcast. Bye for now, and as always, keep clowning.